Hello.
Yes.
Hi. So, so what's up? Have you all submitted your assignment? I can check it actually.
Yes, sir.
Let me quickly verify what the status of it so that. Yeah. So the total number of people who have handed in is 31. So yeah, so I can see there are 4 people who have not yet submitted. So is Abid Shortcut there?
Yes, sir.
Have you submitted?
Yes, sir. I have submitted on 17th.
Okay, somehow it is not coming up. Can you resubmit it?
Okay, sir.
It's not showing up. Okay. Nitin Prasad. Nitin Prasad, are you there? Nitin Prasad is not there. Okay. Sadusri.
Sir, I'm just submitting.
Okay. And Prabhudam Vidasar. Prabhudam Vidasar. Okay. I think Prabhudam Vidasar had some problem with submission last time also, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So, okay, let me just see what is this. So Nitin Prasad is still not here. Hello. Do anybody have his phone number or something? Can you just call him up and just maybe confirm whether he has submitted it or not? Hello. Nobody has his phone number?
Yes, sir.
Can you just, call him or message him or something like
Ye-
that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am messaging, and if he does not reply, then I will call him.
Okay. And what about Prabhudam Vidasar? Prabhudam Vidasar, nobody has his number? Hello.
Yes, sir. Uh, con- we have contacts of all our friends,
Okay.
and we did not know that they have not submitted. So
No, that's fine. But okay. So can you also message him? That's what I am.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am messaging them.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so I have of course not looked at your assignments. I must say that I have not looked at it, even your first assignment that much. So I should look at them hopefully in the next week or so, and maybe after next week hopefully we will be able to give you some more feedback about how you are doing and all. So of course I will be discussing kind of the recap of whatever we have done till now, and possibly a little bit of this assignments too, solutions also. Uh, but before I start, do you guys have any questions?
Sir, the model assignments uploaded on the
Right?
classroom
Yeah.
that does not contain proof of correctness.
For which one can you say?
All of them.
Okay, so in the model assignments, let's see. Uh, okay, so section, the problem one is like this, there is only proofs, right? That is not the problem. Or do you want a proof there also?
Uh,
Sorry?
Hello. So my main reason for the reading model assignment was to understand how to write proof of correctness.
No, but proof of correctness for which problem are you looking for? Can you just say?
So all the algorithms.
All the
Yes.
algorithms. Okay. So, okay.
Like one, I agree, it's fine because it's algorithmically defined for everything.
Right.
For the rest of them, I think we require a proof.
Right. You're right. So maybe we should have some proofs there. We have not written that. Although, I mean, the problem to the proof was kind of obvious in some sense, but yeah, but still, I think you're right. We should have a proof there. Problem 3 is the one which is the finding the median.
Median, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that also writing a proof is right. Yeah, I'm not in the 6. Okay, so maybe I will add the proofs. But again, for most of them, the proofs are kind of okay, except for the section 6, problem number 6. The rest of them, the proofs are more or less kind of obvious only.
Sir, I completely agree that the algorithms are obvious, but like the main point was how to write the proof.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So, see, this is a kind of a intuitive take. So, if an algorithm is kind of obvious, okay, then it is perfectly fine for me to if you skip the proof. Okay. I mean, of course. I mean, if I kind of if somebody insists on that, then proof should can be and should be given. But if I mean for this set of algorithms, actually, I mean, once somebody gives that algorithm, produces that algorithm, the proofs are more or less simple. So I would not really insist on proofs for this kind of algorithms, but I understand your point. So I will try to add some proofs here. But the main thing is that for slightly more complicated algorithms, which we will see in some time, okay, there I think proofs will start coming.
Sir,
Yeah.
in assignment 2, I skipped the proof of some correctness, my proof of correctness for some algorithms after looking at the model answers.
That's fine.
Should
So
I-
again, I mean, if the algorithm is kind of obvious, okay. So if you skip that proof, that is perfectly fine. Because see, I mean, there is two parts to an algorithm thing. There is a one part of designing an algorithm, but the goal is to kind of come up with the algorithm. Okay, so for certain problems, coming up with the algorithm itself is not immediately obvious, right? For example, say something like in the assignment, the problem number 3, right? What is the algorithm that you do? Or even problem number 4, how do you find the median of two sorted arrays of each of length n, right? But once the algorithm is designed, then the correctness of the algorithm is kind of understood to some level. So for such things, again, I mean, as I told, I mean, giving a proof is perfectly, I mean, so you should be able to give a proof, but if for simple things you don't give a proof, it's also fine with me. Okay, so it's something like when you solve say a small algebra question, right? If you write if you say write a quadratic equation and say that, oh, this quadratic equation solution is this, okay, as this is a root of this quadratic equation, you don't necessarily need to go and prove that that is the solution or this is some obtained by the formula or something like that. I mean, it's like I assume that, okay, fine, you know, I mean, you have got it right. But again, I mean, if somebody really insists that, oh, I don't get this, I don't see why is this one a root, then you should be able to write it. Right. So it's a kind of a, I mean, it's true for every subject, right? So there are certain set of problems where, I mean, you should make a call on how much you have to write. So for some algorithms, when the proofs are like almost obvious, it's fine if you skip it. But then there are algorithms for which the proof is not obvious. Okay, and there you should be able to. I mean, you should give some reasons about why the proof is correct. So by the way, I mean, when we were looking at this correctness of proofs and all, we were looking at things like the loop invariants and all these things, right? I mean, those are exactly the kind of the tools that you need to prove those things. So what I will do is that I will add some proof for this for solution of quiz 1. But I should also say that for quiz 1, I think whatever has been written, if you write something like this, it's perfectly fine with me. Okay.
So maybe we can skip those proofs then and we can do one of the more non-obvious ones.
Yeah, so the non-obvious, for example, the problem number 6 is the proof there. That problem was okay. That proof that one will require a proof for certain. Okay, okay. So problem number 6, that proof is not there. Right. I mean, in problem number 6, that was the kind of the point weighing problem, where you kind of say that you need order, say you have n log n to identify the last bit, right? So a natural question is that, I mean, there is some algorithm that is done, and why will that algorithm output something like this? Again, it is basically binary search, but still it is not the obvious binary search, right? So a proof of that for that statement would be kind of required. Yeah. So what I will do is that I will try to add some proofs of these statements. Okay. But again, I mean, do note that if you think that an algorithm is kind of obvious, not algorithm obvious. I mean, once somebody gives an algorithm, the correctness of the algorithm or the time complexity of the algorithm are kind of obvious, then skipping it is fine. Okay. But if you think that algorithms, whichever thing, sometimes maybe the time complexity is not obvious, sometimes it is the correctness of the proof is not obvious, and in that case, you should have to give the correctness and or the time complexity for particular. Yeah, I mean, okay, so let me go over your solutions. Anyways, you guys have all given the solution of first one, right? So I will like to go over the solutions and let me give you some comments about, I mean, maybe which part of it is something that you might have skipped or something like that, or this is obvious or something like that. So, yeah. Okay. So any more comments or solutions, comments or questions? So by the way, I have finally got some answers from the Dean's office regarding the course breakup. The how will the whole thing be done? Okay, how will the assignment, how will the evaluation be done? So it seems that we will have an end sem, which will be possibly physical. Okay, so that end sem will contain 50% of the marks. Okay, there will be no mid-sem, and the rest of the 50% marks will be distributed for among the quizzes or assignments or something like that. Okay, so there will be different kind of assignments and different kind of quizzes that will be given. So again, I think what I will do is that I will give you say something like maybe 7 or 8 assignments throughout the whole semester, and I will take the best 5 of them. I mean each assignment containing 10 marks. Okay, so
These two which we have already submitted are included in that 7 or 8.
yeah, that will also be included in 7 or 8.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so I will upload this knowledge information in the web page. But yeah, so this is the kind of status that.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, I'm Abhi Shorkar. Can you please check once more whether it is submitted?
Yes, your thing is submitted.
Okay, sir. Sorry, sir. I somehow it didn't.
Yeah, but Tadusri, I have not yet got your thing yet. Tadusri, have you-
It's uploading. My network is slow.
okay, okay, fine. Okay, your network is slow, that's why it is uploading. Okay, and what about? Did you guys manage to contact Nitin Prasad and Prabhuram Didasa?
Sir, I messaged them, both of them,
Yeah.
and Prabhuram replied me that he will join. Just tell that I will ask to say this kind of. And he did not say anything more than that. And I asked Nitin Prasad also. He did not seen the message yet. And then I called him, but he did not receive the phone.
You
So
didn't pick up the phone.
I don't know. Maybe his network is bad or something like that. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Yeah. So Tadusri, I mean, yeah. So your thing is uploading, right? Hello. Am I there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So any more questions?
Sir, regarding the assignments, or like the pseudo course, like how do you expect us to write the pseudo course? Like there was this question in assignment 2 about the heaps, and we had to construct a heap from the array.
Right.
And I was wondering how does one like write a pseudo code? Like do I write in like plain English, like while the root is empty, insert
No,
this
no,
element?
no.
And
You have to write. You can write it in plain English, but you have to give it as steps. Okay.
yeah, so like
And-
if you
and
have to write like struct node and stuff like that is basically just writing a C program. So it's not a pseudo code anymore. Like it's become more of a code than
Okay, so if
an
you write a code, also perfectly fine. Okay. So let me give you an example. Okay. So good that you started this question. So I was anyways going to discuss this heap thing. Okay. So maybe I will share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
yes sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's quickly recollect what was the heap thing. Okay. So in the yeah. So in the heap, right? So okay. So what is the first of all, what was the idea? The idea was that I have a node. Okay. So I have a node U. I have its two children, right? So we can call of this one as left child of U and the right child of U. And what is this node? Also, I can define this concept of parent of U. Okay, so parent of u. So node u is okay. We don't have to write it node u. So there is a node that is we name as u. Okay, and it has these three properties. It is the left child of u, right child of u, and parent of u. Okay, and we can also say something like maybe the whatever is contained in this one is so u is the value contained in the node. Okay, or if you want to be even more formal, you can write it as, yeah, I think this so this is the kind of, so u is the node, so u is the node which we use it here, and we will think of u both as a node as well as the value contained inside the node. So if you want to make it a bit formal, you can write something like a value of u is the quantity that is stored in the u. Okay, but I don't think we need that. Okay, so now what was the main idea? So first of all, the heap is stored like this, right? In a almost binary tree, right? Now we also know that, okay, so the another thing that we can do is that, I mean, I don't know whether we'll need it or not, but the index of u is something that we can say. So in the heap, so this is stored as a heap, right? So if I have a node u at a position I, then I know where are these two children are, right? So 2 times I plus 1 and 2 times I minus 1, right? So this is at 2 times I minus 1 and 2 times I plus 1. And we also know where is the parent is. So if I define this parent of u, left child of u, and right child of u, they are very well understood objects. Which element to look at, right? Okay. So these are, you can think of it as the heap structure. Now the heap is also full, right? So if this is completely, so this is the so this is not a complete binary tree. Say this has the last node is like this. Then the last element is stored in the last place, right? So this element is stored here. That also we know. Okay. And the other thing that we can say is that we can, when we, okay, now not other thing. Now the other thing is that when we talk about insert, how do we insert something? How do you insert a particular value? Insert a value u. What does it mean? It means that first of all, you will put the u at the last end. If you remember that I had this heap, okay. Yeah.
Sir?
Yeah.
So shouldn't it be 2i in the left child?
Oh, maybe this is 2i. Oh, sorry, right. It is 2i and 2i plus 1, right? Okay. So I have this heap structure, right? Almost completed. So when I get the u, I write it as the last one. So this is u. And then what is the idea that we do? What we do is that we look at its parent, right? If the parent is bigger than u, so this is we are talking about the case of mean heap. So mean heap, the main structure is that the parent of u must be less than or equal to, say, the less than or equal to u, or in other words, u should be less than or equal to left child of u and also about the right child of u. See, I mean, I am happy with this notation. Now, if you are really you want to be more formal or something, you can write that value of u is less than the value of the left child of u, or you can value of the parent of u is less than the value of u. But it's okay. For pseudocode, you can be a bit more relaxed on this kind of stuff. We are not writing a program. Okay. So you understand that. So we will identify a particular object with this content. Okay. So, and this for insertion, what? Yeah.
It's showing done. Can you please check if you got it?
this is, I must have got it. Yeah, I got yours.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Okay, so when I try to insert a u, I end this one here, and I keep on, if the parent of u is bigger than u, then what do? I would swap, right? And by swap, I know what is it, right? So there are 2 or 3 ways of writing it. Okay, so let me write out a very simple pseudocode, which will be fine enough. So this is a insert. What does insert do? Insert takes a heap, okay, of length n, meaning number of elements is n, okay, and a u. What it does? Okay, so heap n is basically the last one, right? So this is a heap, but it also, you can think of it, this is a heap, but it's also an array, right? A heap is basically an array, right? So what you do is that you make h of n plus 1 equals to u. That is start thing. Fine. Then what do? Then you keep on swapping, right? So what is the idea? So if, okay, so you do, what you do is that if parent of u is more than, not more than equal to, more than u, what I wanted to do is that then swap u and parent of u, but swap location u and parent of u. Now see, this also you understand what is happening, right? What you do is that in the heap, sorry, in the array, wherever parent of u is, you put u, wherever u is, you put parent of u. Okay, and you swap, and basically everything basically becomes changed here, and you keep on doing it up till what? Up till this quantity, that parent of u is less than u. Okay, so while, so maybe this statement is one of the simple ones. So while parent of u equals to this one, swap this one. So this is a very simple pseudocode that basically captures whatever we want to do. It's an insert. Now, if you want to do a bit more, in a much more formal way, that is also kind of easy. Okay. So in that case, I'll be very careful here. So again, insert has these 3 values, right? What are values? It takes h, it takes n, and u. First of all, of course, you do the same thing. Okay, h of n plus 1 equals to u. Okay. Now you define, initialize a pivot equals to n plus 1. Okay. Then what do you do? So again, we have to do the same thing, right? So what is the value? We have to write the same thing. So while I want to write here that parent of u is bigger than u. Now what is parent of u? Parent of u is nothing but h of pivot by 2, right? Your flow. While this one is bigger than h of pivot right? You can, I mean, here I can just write swap h of pivot of, so this is the parent, this is the location of the parent. Note that pivot of 2, I mean, if I have any element I, right, what is it called? If this is that element I, this is at I by 2 floor, right? Swap this one and h of pivot. And what do you do? And you make pivot to be equal to the previous one. Pivot of 2. And that's it. So this is the insert. I mean, this is, you can see that this is almost as good as writing a code, but this doesn't have a syntax. I'm not using any structured and all those things. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now once you have insert, how do you construct a heap? How do you construct a heap? So this one you can just kind of keep on doing it, right? So fine. So what you can do is that again we can use the same kind of structure, right? So for I equals to 1, 2. So say, so what do you mean by that? So I want to, so this is called heapify, or say construct heap. Say construct heap. Now what all things does construct heap takes? It takes an array A, okay, of length n, right? And that's it. And what do I want to do? Remember that I have this array here A, and I would like to keep on maintaining heap. I mean, I basically want to push this boundary slowly from left to right, so that on the left of side is the heap and the right of side is the non-heap, right? So again, so initialize I equals to 1. So while I is less than or equal to n, what do? You insert. What do I have to insert? What is that we have to insert? So insert A. Now, so what is the heap till now? Heap is till 1 to n minus 1, I minus 1. And I have to insert the element that is in the, oh, and this is of course I minus 1, right? And I have to insert the element at the ith location. And that's it. So this is the construct heap. Is it clear? So for example, when you are writing this code, okay, again, as I told you, I am not really worried about this particular giving a correctness of particular this when you write this one, does it do the right thing and all. If I mean if I give you this one, what I would have expected, I mean the first part was done in in the class, so that's okay, is that intuitively define what is it that we are doing. Okay, the main idea is that we insert it at to the last location of heap and check for the parents, and as long as the parents is less than that, we keep on increasing. Okay, and then you have a proof that this algorithm will be correct. Why? Because what we want to prove, the only thing that we have to show is that first of all, it is a full structure. is a complete heap, and or almost complete heap, the complete binary tree, and every time we will ensure that so wherever we end, it will have the heap structure. That is, for every node, it will be less than its children. So that one you can give a proof. Okay, but then once you define or describe the algorithm in English, okay, and you give the pseudocode, I would not be that paranoid to ask you that why is this pseudocode same as what you have done in the algorithm. Okay, because that is kind of understood. If you somehow describe me the algorithm and give me a proof of the algorithm correctness, then you write this pseudocode, I'll be happy with that. Or if somebody wants to do the opposite other way, that gives the pseudocode and say that, oh, this one will give me a the correct thing by giving a proof that what is the loop invariant of the while loop, that also I'm perfectly fine with that. That for the loop invariant of the while loop, so what is the loop invariant? How can you prove this? That this one will give you a heap?
So the elements, including the pivot and below pivot, maintain the heap property.
Exactly. Right? At any point of time, anything that is pivot and below will be maintaining the heap code. And that is something that is satisfied in the while loop, and it will only stop when whenever it stops, the parent is smaller than the of this node. Okay. So now, do you want me to define the delete thing or extract heap? It is exactly same. You just do the opposite direction.
So we were told to construct the heap in ON time rather than N.
Okay. So did I? So was it told to do it in ON time?
Yeah, I asked it as a comment on the assignment.
Okay.
He's replied as that.
Yeah. So this is a bit more tricky. Okay. Let's see. Just 1 second. So did anybody get that ON algorithm for heap file?
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So can you just help me out with that?
So like given any array, rather than insertion is basically pushing elements up.
Right.
Rather than doing that, we push them down. And we start from the second last row.
Start from the second last row.
So my proof for this was, so if we have two heaps and we add an additional element to the top of those two root nodes, and we push that new root node down, we'll get a valid heap.
Right. That is, yeah, almost correct. Yeah. So you're saying that if you have two heap, right, and you add a root node, somehow, and then you push it down, then you have a valid heap.
Yes.
So yeah, so it will be basically T of n equals to 2T n over 2 plus order.
Sir, I explicitly counted the number of push down operations and upper limit for that.
Okay.
So it will be something like, so basically the second last row will get pushed at 1 times. The third last row will be get pushed at most 2 times. And the root node will be pushed at most log n times,
Right.
and so on. That summation was O(n).
Okay. Okay, yeah, I mean, I have to be, yeah, I think you are right, but I have to verify this one. I have to, I mean, I myself forgot exactly this construction.
I think the way I've written the proof is a bit convoluted.
But that's okay. I mean, see again, I mean, yeah. See, many times, as I told you, I mean, in the algorithms course, the main goal will be to create algorithms, okay? And of course, to know how to prove it. There's no doubt about that. But there are times that coming up with the right design of the algorithm is actually the much more trickier part.
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, actually I entered a bit late.
Yeah.
Can you please confirm regarding the correctness of proof? Because in the model solution, I thought that the proofs were like the literal proof of why this algorithm is running correctly. That was not required. So I
So
skipped
basically what I told is that so for all the for most of the questions in assignment 1, except for maybe the last question, okay, the once you design the algorithm, the proof of correctness is kind of obvious. So I kind of told that, I mean, for this set of questions, if you don't give a proof of correctness, that is kind of fine with me. So it is like, I mean, it's your call, okay? So in some sense, so if you give an algorithm that is kind of obvious, and you say that, oh, see, I mean, once you come up with this algorithm, it is kind of whatever is being happening is easy to see that will give you the right answer. Then it's okay if you don't give the correct, if you don't give the proof of correctness. Okay, but again, if the problem as the algorithm is a bit more convoluted, okay, and the proof of correctness is not obvious, then you have to give the proof of correctness. So till now, most of the algorithms that we have seen, I mean, the proof of correctness has been kind of simple, or that is the assignment 2. So that's why it was skipped. But again, I mean, so what I will do is that I will add some proof of correctness in this of the assignment 1 solutions also. But the main thing is that always remember that this is like any other course, right? Where you have to say somebody gives you a problem and you have to say you construct a group, right? And you prove something with that group. Now, maybe I mean, the proof that you construct is kind of the obviously that's the proof. But sometimes you skip the fact that the proof that whatever you construct is a proof, because you kind of that is kind of almost understood that, oh, okay, fine, good, that is a proof, right? So similarly here, if there are algorithms for which, I mean, this writing, writing a proof is something is just is not going to add something new to that whole write-up, then it is perfectly fine to kind of skip it. So for example, here exactly that I told here, right? I mean, if you give me a proof, if you explain me this, this say insert algorithm, okay, intuitively, give me a proof of that, that the insert algorithm will maintain the heap property. And then you say that, okay, this is fine. And so this pseudocode is this quantity. This is the pseudocode. I would not expect you to prove that the pseudocode is doing whatever the algorithm is doing. So that is kind of obvious. Okay. So in short, so this is what I wanted to convey is that, see, I am not paranoid that I want you guys to write almost obvious statements. I just want to ensure that you get this thing in mind, that if somebody forces you, you should be able to give a proof. And more importantly, always remember that your whatever you do, okay, I mean, must be based on some proof of correctness. Now that proof of correctness might be obvious, and then you skip it. Okay, but if you cannot, so what I will do is that, say, you give me a proof, you give me an algorithm, you think that that algorithm's correctness is obvious. Maybe I don't think it. So I can ask you that, can you actually explain to me why is this algorithm giving you the correct answer? But most of the time that will not happen. Most of the time, I think we will ourselves understand that why is the two algorithms, I mean, why is an algorithm correct if it is obvious. Okay, so I mean, it's like a very vague answer, I know, but this is exactly, I mean, I don't want you guys to, I mean, the reason I want you to write the proof is not because I want to pain you guys to write obvious statements. But it is something that you should have in your mind, that everything that we are doing is based on correct, I mean, it has a formal proof. Okay, and if somebody forces, you should be able to give the formal proof. So in the next 2-3 weeks, we will see problems or algorithms where the algorithms will become way more complicated, or way more, not complicated, but non-intuitive rather. Okay, and then for the proofs of the correctness will come in the picture way more. Okay, but for till now, whatever has been done, I mean, proof of correctness was kind of simple, and for the assignments, at least most of the time, the proof of correctness was pretty simple. Okay, so is this was this a satisfying answer or not? Hello.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I mean, so okay, so did you guys? I mean, is the pseudocode for heap sort fine? I mean, I've just given it for the insert, but you can do the similar thing for delete also, or extract mean.
Sir, I did not understand the order n thing.
No, forget the order n thing. You understood this one, right? I mean,
Yes.
yeah. So order n thing, I will have to also revisit it myself and kind of get it confirmed. Yeah. Okay. So order n, you can do it, but I don't know. I mean, I don't remember that one, I must say. So one can construct a heap in order n algorithm. I actually myself forgot it. That it's but you guys got the order n log n algorithm.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So by this, whoever asked me about the pseudocode, so this is good enough. Okay, you don't have to write something way more than that. This is much more than good enough. Okay, this is basically, I mean, as good of a pseudocode you want. Okay.
Yes.
So any more questions about? Okay, so let me actually, I mean, this is something about this recap that you guys were saying. So, 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 so if I have to recap whatever we have done so far, so let me first say that we have done some set of algorithms, right? A collection of algorithms. So firstly, we have done things like simple algorithms like this GCT kind of algorithm. We have done a little bit of searching algorithm. We have spent quite some time on sorting algorithms. And we have done quite some time on, not quite some time, we have just done some time on the simple graph algorithms. Now, simple graph. Now, this is something that we have just basically done just BFS and DFS. Okay. We have not done a lot of it. So, but I will come back to this one a bit later. So, yeah.
Sir, in the previous semesters, we have actually done Kruskal's algorithm and also.
Oh, you have done Kruskal's algorithm?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, what all algorithms have you done? Tell me. Do you guys remember that? Did you do Dijkstra's algorithm?
No, we only did Prims and Kruskal's.
You did Prims and you did
Kruskal.
Kruskal's. But you have not done DFS and PFS. Huh? I'm a bit surprised.
So in the last time we were about to start that, but then the pandemic hit.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So basically you have done MST, right? Minimum spanning tree.
Yes.
Okay, good. So that is a useful thing, I must say. You guys all remember? Yeah, at least I can now ask you guys to go and read these two things yourself, some level. Because I was really running behind schedule. So in the Prims and Kruskal's algorithm, of course, you did proof of correctness, right? So Prims and Kruskal's, the proof of correctness is not trivial.
Yes, sir. We proved the algorithms.
And you prove the time complexity also. Or no, time complexity you didn't do.
No, no.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay. Okay, good. So let me just tell you, I mean, I will just recap whatever we have done in a slightly different way today. But last time some people were asking about holidays and all those things. So let me just first of all tell you that, I mean, technically ISI has given holiday, but that is on Friday, Saturday, and Monday. Okay. Actually, it doesn't affect us except for the Saturday one. And Saturday classes, anyways, we don't have that much. So what we will do is the following, okay? So on this Thursday, we will have a class, okay? And I will be discussing a bit of BFS and DFS, more like the properties of BFS and DFS, something that I have not done, and something called a topological sort. I mean, have you seen this topological sort anywhere?
Also.
Okay. So this is the thing that I will do on Thursday, okay? And although technically next Tuesday also I can have a class, but let me be good to you guys and give a next Tuesday, meaning, so what is today's date? Today's date is 20th, right? So this is 27th, okay? So 27th October, okay? So I will not have class, okay? This is the holiday, okay? We will meet on next Thursday, okay? And I would expect, I will start with Dijkstra's algorithm. So this algorithm is the 4.5, I think, or 4.4 or 4.5 from the Kleinberg-Tardas book. Okay, I will really request you guys to go over it to some level at least, so that we can discuss that one in slightly more details. Okay, and the next assignment, okay, that will be there. Okay, that will be due on the Tuesday after that. Okay, the first two problems that will be there is basically state Prim's algorithm kind of stuff like that, or describe Prim's algorithm, describe and prove the correctness and time complexity. Now, of course, you have not done this time complexity in your class, but now that you have seen how to analyze time complexity, you should be able to do it for Prims and Kruskal's. Okay, so this will be due on the Tuesday after that. What is that? It is 3rd November or something, or I mean, no, not Tuesday after that. Let's do it on 2nd November. So Monday after that. It's Monday. So Chandrima, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you just note it down?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So good. So you have seen, so this is the Prim's algorithm and the Kruskal's algorithm that is there, and this is what you guys have to do. Okay. So this you have to recollect. By the way, these are there. The Prim's and Kruskal's algorithm is there in the Kleinberg-Tardas also. So in case you guys have forgotten, feel free to go and read them up. But you have to kind of, not copy it, but just write it, because I just want to ensure that you guys go over it. I will not be doing this MST, therefore, in the class. Okay, so that will help give me at least some more time to recap or speed up. Okay, and for people who are kind of told that, see, I have actually taken this week in a very slow process. Okay, so I am basically not doing anything today, and neither am I going to do anything, almost not too much on Thursday. So people, whoever were feeling that we are going a bit fast, please use this time to catch up. Okay, if you have any questions, any doubt, if you want a class or a discussion on Saturday or Tuesday, let us know. We will be happy to do one more. No new material to discuss topics and all, new problems and all, but that's about. But we'll be happy to do it. Okay. So any questions?
Sir, all of these assignments have equal weightage, right? Like 10 marks each.
Yeah. So I think we will give some more questions for this third one. Okay. This is one question. So we might give some more questions for the third one. This is a kind of a simple one, but yeah, all of them will have equal weightage.
You'll upload it to Classroom, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Possibly it will come only in next week sometime, but yeah, or maybe on Thursday. Let's see. Okay, so by the way, I just want to, before I go on, so this is something that I want to discuss. See, we have done this set of classes, this set of things till now, okay? And which was done, what was done so far, and you have also done Prince and Kruskal to some level. It was done in a kind of a ad hoc manner. We picked up a problem and we tried to solve it. We picked up another problem and tried to solve it, and so on. And what all things that we have seen, we have of course seen something like time complexity. We have our basically runtime, right? We have seen a little bit of space complexity. We have seen randomized time complexity. We have seen lower bounds, at least once. I mean, one or two techniques, actually just one technique in fact, right? We have seen the lower bounds techniques. And what we have seen, okay, we have seen proof of correctness. And now the proof of correctness is of course of the two various things, the proof of correctness and proof of time complexity, right? So these are the few things that we have seen. So till now, in the first half of the course till now, it was a bit ad hoc. We picked up problems, we solved it. We picked up problems, we solved it. And we looked at various ways of analyzing this problem so far. Now for the next part, we will try to see some techniques, slightly more, so I kind of classify this set of approaches that we have seen into 3 or 4 different parts. So one of the first thing is that what is called is the greedy algorithm. Greedy algorithm, basically you can say that this is an algorithm where we don't, I mean, we do kind of in a very brute force way, okay? Or we can do something which is locally optimal. We follow a local optimal technique, okay? So local, I mean, so maybe I should say it's a try to satisfy local optimality. Now, one you can say something like the insertion sort is a greedy algorithm, or a bubble sort or even say counting sort. Okay, so these are all greedy algorithms. Another very good example of greedy algorithm, if you remember at all, okay, is the Kruskal algorithm. If you've forgotten this one, yeah, recollect it and you will see what I mean. Okay, you are trying to construct an MST by picking up, or minimum spanning tree, by picking up these this least weighted edge that I can take while ensuring a tree structure. Okay, so this is the Kruskal algorithm. So these are all of them are very greedy algorithms. Now greedy algorithms sometimes can be pretty amazingly nice. Okay, we will see some of it. But the greedy algorithm has one more problem. The problem is that, see, every time we do something that is based on a local optimality, okay? Now a local optimal algorithm need not always be perfect globally. So the proof of correctness is not obvious. Okay. Particularly things like in the Kruskal's algorithm, you are doing something, and yes, you are picking up you will be picking up some edges in a very greedy way, ensuring tree structure. So at the end of the day, you will be getting a tree structure, no doubt. But why will that give you a minimum spanning tree? That is not clear, because everything was done in a very local, and this is possibly something that you all know, that locally trying to improve something not necessarily gives you a global perfect solution, right? So in the after we come back, maybe the first week of November or something like that, maybe we will see some very beautiful algorithms that are in this range. Okay, some of the machine learning algorithms, which we will also do in this class, are exactly in this range, where you do some crazy greedy algorithm and the proofs can be pretty non-trivial. Okay, proofs of correctness, meaning it's like not the time complexity, but the proof of correctness of the algorithm can be non-trivial. Okay. The second class of algorithms is what is called the divide and conquer. Now, divide and conquer is basically, you kind of know what is that, right? You kind of break it up into small parts and you kind of try to solve the smaller parts in some way and then put them all together. A typical example of divide and conquer is the merge sort or the quick sort or even bucket sort. Okay. So these are all divide and conquer algorithms. Again, divide and conquer algorithms in general is easy to prove the correctness of the algorithm. Okay. But here the most complicated thing is usually the computing the runtime. Because the runtime can be given more as a recursive, as a recursion. Okay. So we will see this algorithm also in the next in 2 weeks time from now. So something like, how do you multiply two numbers? If I have given you two n-digit numbers, how do you multiply them? Or if I give you a matrix A and a matrix B, how of say n cross n matrix? Okay, if I give you a matrix A of size n by n and a matrix B of size n by n, so final output is of course a n by n matrix C, right? And note that every element here, right, the ijth element is basically the multiplication of the ith row and jth column. So and that requires n different multiplications, right? So this with this. So every point here can be done in order n steps. So the total number of steps required to do this whole computation is order n cube. So this is kind of the greedy or basic brute force algorithm. But can you do better? And we will see how we can get a much faster algorithm than this. Much faster though. And that is using again the divide and conquer algorithm. Okay. So divide and conquer algorithm we will see the divide and conquer algorithm in many respects. The third technique of algorithms that you can think of is what we have done is basically you can say is a data structure driven algorithm. Now here the idea is that this is something where a very clever construction of data structure is what is used to do something. Okay. It's not a greedy, it's not a binary search, so it's not a greedy neither divide and conquer, but it is a much more, you use the data structure nicely. Now we have not seen data structures that much, but we have seen a little bit of data structures. We have seen how binary search can be done using a sorting algorithm, how a heap sort can be done using a nice data structure algorithm. Okay, now we might see some more of this one, but I'm not 100% sure whether we will have time for this particular section that much. Because data structure is a very complicated technique and it's a complete course in itself. So I'm not 100% sure how much we will be seeing this more. Okay, there are some more techniques that we will come to this after that, and this will be much more involved. So in short, we will be spending nearly 1 week or 1.5 weeks on greedy algorithm. We will spending another 1 or 1.5 weeks on divide and conquer algorithm, and then this one I am not 100% sure how much will I spend time. But then there are things like called a dynamic algorithm that we will see. I have not, you have no idea what dynamic algorithm is. Then the another thing is actually there are some particular algorithms which are kind of the, you can think of them as the mother of all algorithms. Okay, meaning almost any, like, or most of the problem that we want to solve can be reduced or can be modeled into that language. Okay, so this is a algorithms using something called a reduction, and we will see two techniques over here, basically linear programming, and we will see SAT, something again you possibly have not seen yet. Okay, and once we have defined something like this, from reductions we will go into a little bit of complexity theory. And this is basically what we will be doing now. So in short, what you have seen now till now is a little bit of at least greedy algorithm, little bit of divide and conquer algorithm, and a little bit of data structures algorithm. Okay, and you guys should be by now familiar with, to some level at least, what is time complexity, how to compute time complexity, what is space complexity, how to compute space complexity, randomized algorithm, right? What does it mean and how do you solve it to some cases? Lower bound, this is very interesting, where you try to prove that there cannot be algorithms of certain time, a certain number of steps and so on. And the overall concept of whatever we are doing is basically based on a proof of correctness. Whether you have to write it, whether it is obvious or not, that's not the point. But the fact that everything that we are doing are formally correct things. The algorithms are correct. The correct meaning they are worst case correct. They're correct always. Okay. And when we say that it takes a certain number of time, when we talk about time complexity, we also mean something mathematically sound, right? It's the number of steps required, and that is also done mathematically, and how one can do it. Okay. And yeah, so this is basically what we have got it so far. Now this BFS and DFS are the other things that we have done, and these are basically, you can think of the very basic graph algorithms. Okay, this is a graph algorithm. This is almost, I will not put it in any particular way. So this is the basic graph algorithms. Critical algorithms, but the goal is to kind of, basically these are called the traversal algorithms. Traversal algorithms, and you have seen things like how is the graph given. So we are talking about the adjacency list technique. Okay, of course there is an adjacency matrix that we have not seen this one at all. Possibly I'll give you a question on this particular problem in some sense. Okay, so you have a basic graph algorithm, you have a graph traverse, and this is all we have done so far. So in the next class, we will be looking into the BFS and DFS by a little bit more. So like BFS and DFS both produces, given a graph produces a spanning tree, right? Spanning tree. Now these spanning trees have some nice structures in them. Okay, they are not arbitrary spanning trees. Okay, so so what I will say is that for the next class, please go and recap your BFS and DFS. By the way, we have defined BFS and DFS only for undirected graphs, but you can also define it for directed graphs, right? Where you basically go along a path which is direct. So you can go from U to V only if there is a directed edge from U to V, but you cannot go from V to W, V to U. Okay, so in such cases, what will a BFS and DFS do? How will you find it? What will be time complexity, and so on and so forth is what we will be looking at. Okay, so is this one fine? Any questions? Hello.
Sir, what is randomized time complexity?
So you guys did randomized time complexity, right? Like the randomized time complexity of the quick sort is n log n, right? So randomized time complexity can also be of two kinds. Okay, one kind is when you say that okay, the inputs are coming from a random is coming. You can say okay, so this is like a, it's called randomized time complexity because it's like the inputs are coming from a distribution, which till now we have been assuming that is a uniform distribution over all the sets of all these sorted arrays kind of stuff, right? It's a random input. Okay, so there's two ways of doing it. So you remember the quick sort, right? In the quick sort, how was it done? What is the randomized quick sort? You remember randomized quick sort? In the quick sort, we assume that we start with a point, a pivot, and produce that split up into two parts, right? Left and right. Right? In the
Yes.
quick sort, we pick up a pivot and we take up a pivot. Okay, so this is a pivot P, and you kind of slowly find out and go and say that okay, so here is P, these are less than P, these are more than P. right? And then you go and split. But what is this P? Now, in quicksort, the P is the first element. But the other thing that you can do in the randomized quicksort is that you can pick a random. So P is a, say this AI, where I is drawn uniformly at random from 1 to n. So it's one of the random points. Okay. And now the question is that what is the expected running time? What is the expected runtime? And this is the expected runtime. This is the randomized time complexity. Okay, so this is one way of doing it. Another way of thinking of the randomized time complexity, or another kind of different type of randomized time complexity, is what you did for the bucket sort. Or you say that the inputs have random. Inputs are coming from a distribution. And then what is the runtime? Expected runtime. That is also randomized time complexity. Sometimes that randomized time complexity is called the average time complexity. So basically, if randomness is in the algorithm, say like in the randomized quicksort algorithm, okay, then it is called the randomized time complexity. And if the randomness is in the distribution of the input, then some people still call it randomized time complexity, but usually it is called the average time complexity or average case time complexity. Okay, so this is basically the two things, but the main idea is that we are not taking about the worst case runtime. It is some randomness. Okay, any more questions? Any questions, any doubt, any clarification that you want? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if not, I would just ask you guys one more thing again. I have not yet got the assignment from Nitin Prasad and Prabhuram Vidasar. Can you guys please reconfirm with them? Okay. So, is Prabhuram Vidasar here? Hello. Who was the person who has contacted him?
Yes, sir. I contacted both of them, and now I see that Nitin has seen the message. Prabhu was talking with me that he will. I asked him to join, but I don't know why he did not.
Okay, I mean, he doesn't have to be joined. I'm not insisting on attendance, but the assignments, I mean, at least he should send me a mail or something like that if he has trouble in his internet, or is he just deciding not to send it. Can you just maybe send just check with him. I will also, yeah. Also, Chandrima, are you there still?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you just also send a mail to these two guys?
Sure.
Yeah, reminding them to submit it immediately.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So that should be this was the kind of a very quick recap of whatever has been done. As I told you, we will meet on, where is it? We will meet on Thursday we will be doing a DFS, BFS, and something called a topological sort. We'll have no class on Saturday or Tuesday, but if you guys want some discussions or something, please feel free to talk to, send us a mail. We'll be happy to talk. If you want to talk to any one of the TAs personally, that also is perfectly fine. And in the holidays, I mean, I understand that it's a holiday, but still, I would really request you to kind of, stay safe, stay at home, and study if possible. And
Sir, what about the practice problems?
right, you had given told it. So I will. So good. So I will. We will upload quite a number of practice problems. We'll do that. So Chandrima, can you also please take note of this one and remind me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I forgot about it. Sorry. Yeah, I will. We will try to upload a quite number of practice problems. Understood. Okay. Okay. So basically, yeah, you have to of course go and do the Princeton algorithm, Kruskal's algorithms. But on Thursday when you come back, you should have come prepared with this Dijkstra's algorithm. Okay. Any more questions, comments, notes? If not, let's stop the meeting now. Okay. Bye.
Thank you, sir.